But that aside, we also know that the government had said it would do away with the social register that was put in place by the Buhari administration, and it said it's because there are certain issues around integrity of that social register. Well, all of this we are going to look at, and hopefully at the end of the day we might have better ways and look at how government can properly handle this palliative situation. Who also is even qualified for a palliative has come into question. Remember, the plan of the government was 8,000 naira for the poor Nigerians, poor households, 12 million households, poor people. That's the point of the government. But many are asking, there are many other individuals in the country. The private sector is there. In fact, conversations about even the church, the clergymen, everyone in this country is affected by this. What would be their own palliative? Well, hopefully we get answers to all of this. You can join the conversation on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. On Facebook, we're streaming live. It is Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. On Twitter, it is Nigeria Info PH. On Instagram and Threads, it is Nigeria Info FM _PH. So join us on any of those platforms and be a part of the conversation. Also, don't forget that you can send in your thoughts to us using the WhatsApp number 0809 030 6416. Now, let me go to my guest, Dr. Dagogo. You are in this country and Rivers State, and I'm pretty sure you've been following up with these issues. Looking at first at the steps taken by the government, it was first the 8,000 naira palliative, which was one of the measures that they say would be put in place. And then the next was the infrastructure funds, the monies that they want to give the 36 state governors. How these governors are going to use this money is now a critical question. How can we even identify that these monies will be efficiently utilized to meet the needs of Nigerians who need this most, especially in these harsh economic times? You were the chairman of the River State Shopee Implementation Committee, so you would have an experience of how monies and these sort of programs are held, organized, and how to get to the people that need them. In your opinion, how effective is this infrastructure fund going to be? What would be the most effective way to implement it?
Well, let me start by saying that you remember when MAMSA was formed. I said to people who were ready to listen that MAMSA was going to fail. One program that will cater for mass mobilization, social justice, economic recovery, it will fail. One program policy covering everything in the whole nation. Now you are giving infrastructure fund to governors, and you are saying for health sector, transportation, agriculture, everything put together. I want to ask, does this present federal administration have an economic policy at all? Or do they want to tie the governors into a corner where the governors will not be able to do anything or will have to have problems with these people? Now, before you set up such, you send the fund. Yes, I support the fact that you send this money to the governors, and not just the governors, also including local government councils. You cannot know the problems of the people more than the way the local government councils and the governors know the people in each state. And so, talking about the Shopee in which I was the chairman, that was during the time of partial removal of petroleum subsidy. Don't forget that palliatives means a policy that would cushion the hard effects being introduced by the government. Now, government introduced, it's not a lasting solution, but it is just to cushion. How can you tell me economic recovery, agriculture, everything together in one? What the intent of palliative should be such that to cushion the hard effects of a policy being introduced by the government. Now, when the partial removal of petroleum products was made, I think that was during the government of Jonathan Goodluck. Yes. Now, in Rivers State, monies were given to the governors. In Rivers State, I led the committee. As you bring up such policy, let there be structures on the ground. And the federal government should have a monitoring structure to monitor the state committees. They should direct the governors to set up implementation committees in each state. And then the federal government should have a monitoring process, an audit trail, a well-defined audit trail. Now, the one I led had a plan. Now, the plan is to ensure that the poor people benefit from the scheme. Now, from every ward of the state, each ward of the state, we had about 200 persons. You can say the impact throughout the whole state.
So you had
200 beneficiaries.
Each ward,
200. Each ward.
So how did you arrive at picking those 200
now,
people?
For Obiakpo and Faga, where you have quite a good number of people, we had 300 per ward. Now, what they did is they included stakeholders. Now, if you appointed a commissioner, you appointed a special advisor, you must come from a ward. And there are traditional rulers, there are CDCs and women. There's a way they made it. When they make the names, when they get a list, they will send this list to us. We will send the list to the local government chairman.
But this is where many people have a concern. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Because many people feel if this funds comes to the state government, they're not convinced that it would go for the purposes for which it was sent. And even if it would be, now if this method is applied, politics might become the issue.
No, if you listen what I'm saying,
a lot of people think that would be what would happen this time.
Just calm down. They think even if you are doing the most righteous thing, people will still speak. But superior argument counts here. Superior discussion counts here. Whatever you do, people will speak. But the impact, how did we know, or how do we find the impact of this scheme on the people? A consultant was employed who go to interview people, who uses consultancy to ensure that he interacts with people. From time to time, every 6 months, this consultant gives us reports of the impact of this scheme on the people. It was a serious one, for goodness sake. Now, once you have this list given to you, and the local government chairman will verify if these people are from the same ward. Of course, who criticizes the fact that you go to local government chairman to give you identification, local government identification, that you're from this place? So you see people holistically getting involved in the process of getting the list. And in order to ensure that this scheme affects or gets to the right people, we did an audit trail. We did what we call biometrics. And we also did what we call payment through their individual accounts. The problem we had then was that so many persons at the rural area do not have accounts, bank accounts.
Let me pause you again.
Yeah.
Now, this also came up when the government said it would pay 8,000 naira to poor households. And many people had said, we know that the poor of the poor people don't have bank accounts. So how would money get to them? And then it brought up the conversation we heard late last week, was the social register that was put together by the past administration, which was used under the Buhari administration to dispense money, the 5,000 naira to poor Nigerians at the time. Now they're saying, this government is saying, well, faults are in that register. We question the integrity. What the fault exactly is has not been outrightly stated, but that is not what they're intending to work with, which now brings us to the monies that were sent before. If many people don't have account numbers, how did they get there?
Let me tell you, we had that challenge of persons living in the rural areas, beneficiaries who are rural dwellers and who were likely not to have bank accounts. what we did, we had that very strong policy that monies must be transferred to the bank. So we had to call the banks and negotiated with banks. And the banks provided platforms where they could open accounts. Do you know that banks went to the rural areas and opened accounts for these people? These things are practicable. We did it in Rivers State and it worked for us. Banks had to meet these persons. We invited these persons to do these things at the rural areas. They opened accounts for everybody. Because if you don't transfer this money to the accounts, you cannot overcome the issue of ghost names and all that. Now, we did that, and we did biometrics, and the biometrics, involved the capturing of the eyes and the thumb. We were very serious with this scheme. And look, in every policy, you may not have 100%. People will still criticize. But I tell you that from the consultant report, many persons were affected. The only problem we may have then was that of unsuccessful transfers. Networking and all that, successful and unsuccessful transfer. But that one, we now had to meet the banks. They gave us the report of successful and unsuccessful transfer. And then we had to ensure that this unsuccessful, we were on the banks to ensure that this unsuccessful transfer will be made successful.
In other words, with how the federal government is laying out these palliative plans and measures, you do not think that proper planning?
No, it's not proper planning. No proper audit trail, that's number one. No proper planning at all. You have to set up a structure for things like this, particularly cash transfer, social cash transfer. You have to plan it properly. If you don't plan it properly, okay, what impact has the other one that they've just cancelled, the social net?
The one they use, yes.
What impact? Nothing. I tried to monitor that. There were several policies, microfinance policies that were sent to state governors and all that. Most of those ones were not effective because plans were not on ground. A situation where you have a committee in each state, if it could be by legislation, it's okay. But it should be made so strong that state committee should be set up, and then there will be a federal monitoring team. Reports should be given, like what happened here in Rivers State. The deputy governor of the state and the SSG were the monitors. They were monitoring the scheme in line with what the report we are having from the consultant. It was indeed a balanced scheme. I tell you the truth. So you cannot just bring up something and you say you're giving infrastructure fund to governors, and then they should use it on agriculture, and then you go to air to say agriculture, this is what if these things don't get to the people? So the local government chairman and the governors must be involved. Yes, I like that. But a structure must be put in place. And you cannot form at the federal level a committee for the state. No. Look, at my time, TUC was involved in that committee. NLC was involved in that committee. Members of the opposition parties were involved. But
now NLC is even at loggerheads with the government, especially with the fact that NLC is saying a negotiation was ongoing on how to plan a sustainable palliative system.
How to plan. Yes, that's the planning I'm talking about.
And then the government had gone ahead to say this is what it is doing.
Of course, that 8,000.
In the negotiation ongoing with Labour. So if that has already happened and Labour is saying, okay, no, would it not then be difficult to get Labour to come back and say, well, let's plan with state governments on how to
Labour was involved then because things were done decently and in order. Labour was involved then. Things were done decently and in order. You cannot take Nigerian money and give to people, send to people without proper plan on ground. It won't work. And the poor people will keep suffering. For instance, what was the intent of this subsidy? The intent was to ensure that poor people have this, government will pay these things for people, and they will have to buy fuel at a reasonable, cheaper price. But at the end of the day, people, they say in quotes, cabals overtook the scheme. And government inefficiency in curbing this menace, in ensuring that these cabals are exposed, because we were told that they were submitting fake invoices, submitting pipelines.
Which is also not a critical question. We have a commercial coming shortly. Many would ask, why not go after the cabal and take them out of the system?
They did not do that.
The people?
They didn't do that. And then you're not squeezing the people. Yes, everybody supported the fact that you remove palliative because of the cabals. But let us note the fact that it was government inefficiency in curbing the menace of the cabal.
All right, let's go for this commercial. When we come back, we would get to know who is qualified for a palliative. How do we arrive at who should get and who should not get? That's a critical question that has been on the front burner. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Amy, Andrew. And before that break, we asked you a very interesting question. Who should be qualified for the government palliative? Who is qualified? Who would you see as qualified? Before I get back to my guest in the studio, remember that you can join us on Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. On Twitter, Nigeria Info PH. Again, on Facebook, Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. Joining on the conversation and share your thoughts with us, my guest is a former chairman of the River State Short P Implementation Committee, Reverend Dr. Minaibi Dagogo Jack. Dr. Jack, so who and what qualifies a person for a palliative is a question that many have been asking, especially when we hear the government say things like the poor of the poor households, or even in the states, sometimes people are saying, oh, provide for civil servants, and then others are saying, what about the artisans and other private workers, and even the church? There's that conversation now. Banks, private schools, there's just a lot of businesses and people who are affected by this, but seem to look like they are not carried along in the plan when these palliatives are mentioned, but the palliatives are only for a certain few. So at the time in the Short P program, I'm pretty sure same issues must have come up as to who and who and who. How then can we determine who deserves this and who doesn't? Or why should we even have the thought of picking a few people aside the others? I was trying to get from the NLC chairman yesterday. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us on the show today, the national chairman of the NLC. And I was trying to find out, in your negotiations for these palliatives, where private institutions included, to say government, while you're planning for civil servants and private institutions are there. So how do you tackle this? What would be your response to this?
Well, when we implemented the subsidy and empowerment program, it was a partial removal, and we had a target. Don't forget, the cost of petroleum product then was quite different from what we have today. Now, what we are talking about now is total removal of petroleum subsidy. And so it should not, the palliatives shouldn't be given to a particular people alone, in quote, the poorest of the poor, in quote, the civil servants. No. It should affect, it should be holistic approach, a holistic plan that will affect everybody. Because the artisan cries, the bike man cries, the churches use diesel, the companies use diesel, so everybody is affected. And if in order to cover up, for instance, take example, the company, in order to cover up their costs, they try to increase their products, it will affect everybody. And so I think that's why it's a lack of plan. This subsidy matter would have been taken with proper care. The government rushed this subsidy matter. There would have been a proper plan on the ground first before the removal proper. I don't want to hear that somebody included or removed subsidy in the budget of this year and all that. I don't want to hear that. If that same person included the fact that you should kill 1,000 persons in the year 2023, would you kill the persons? These things are adjustable. Now, what I'm saying is that at our time, we targeted the poorest of the poor. And what did we do?
And how did you arrive at
That's
getting them?
Yeah. Now, what did we do? We said PAs of commissioners' essays must not be there. That is, if you are a PA to essay or those in government, you are a councillor, and those who have something, you are employed by anybody. I saw people that were nominated then, and I saw during biometrics, I saw in their forms, some of them were employed with immigration, some of them were in customs and that. We remove them. Once you have gainful employment, there's a form we issue to everybody. State your criteria. And in any case, if even after enlisting you as a beneficiary, we get a report, a petition that so person is working somewhere or is also thing, we try to confirm and remove the person.
In other words, this was the steps you took for the partial removal of subsidy.
For partial removal
now
of subsidy.
That it's a full removal, would this apply?
Now that you can see apply this for the poorest of the poor.
Okay.
Now, since there are negotiations for the civil servants, that will cover them, and then you also see how you can cause rebates and all that for companies and all that. People are really suffering in Nigeria. Look at the roads. So bad that people cannot bring farm products, of course, from the far north or whatever to River State, for instance. So the pains are so high. If the transportation cost is high, obviously market women will increase their products. You see school fees are increasing now at the tertiary institutions, and the nuns are about to demonstrate and all that.
Yeah, private institutions increasing school fees. Government has also removed subsidy for school for education, and so the fees for education is also almost 100% increase.
No, please. That's why I said they are doing this thing as if it's MAMSA. It will not achieve anything. Mass mobilization, social justice, they try to model up things. What is your economic policy? Differentiate your economic policy from the palliatives. Palliatives is the intent of palliative is to cushion the effects of a policy being introduced by the government. For instance, the removal of subsidy is a policy which is giving problems, pains to the people, and then palliatives will only cushion the effects without solving the problem. That's the intent of palliatives. So don't begin to put agriculture, all sorts of things, model up. What are your well-defined economic policy? Now, palliatives are things that can run in the short term and join to run together with your economic policies. So what they are doing, model up issues here and there. You don't know what is the real economic policy. You don't know what are the palliatives stage by stage and all that. No. They say they are giving you seedlings and all that. Let me tell you, what development do seedlings to agriculture in a community in the north will mean may not mean development to some communities in the south. There must be some level of participatory approach. There must be some level of dialoguing. There must be plan on the ground. You don't just begin to impose things on people. A project that will mean development to a community may not mean development to another community, and that is the essence of participatory approach, participatory community development approach. We should be able to understand this. You don't impose things on people where you are and thinking that you are making a project. I think that the government should begin to spell out project. For instance, spell out what you're doing. A project that will affect many people. Every project you introduce, people will have to criticize. You don't bother about that. Why? Because what development means to a people may not be what development means to another people. Number two, there are sectors or persons, whatever thing you do, they are bound to criticize. I'm speaking from a neutral mind, for goodness sake, because I feel the pains of my people. We, the leaders of the church, we should present over so huge number of persons, and I have taken care of people, 75,000 people, 75,000 human beings in River State. That was the largest in the whole Africa, taking social cash transfer project taken by a state. The largest. You cannot equate that to this 12 million thing they are talking about. How many states? 75,000 times how many states will give it to 12 million? So it's by the way. Right. So I feel the pains of the people. Everywhere you go, people are crying. Women are suffering. Men are suffering. Does this encourage productivity, economic growth in a nation? No.
All right, let's open the phone lines and get a few calls first. There's still more to talk about. And perhaps some other issues in the state that we can just touch on using this opportunity. Quickly, 0817-923-0007. 0817-923-0007. You heard my guest. We asked who should be qualified for this palliative, because we've heard, the poorest of the poor, the civil servants. And from his perspective, yes, the poorest of the poor is a good idea to attend to that, but then you also have to have a plan for the civil servants. If you have that for civil servants, you also have to have a plan for artisans and have a plan for private industries, so that everybody would feel that they are carried along and are benefiting from this process. 0817-923-0007, 0817-923-0003 are the numbers that you can call to join in on the conversation. A few messages here first to WhatsApp before we take the calls. This one says, state and local governments used Shopee as empowerment program to their party. Kelechi from Oyigbo. The Shopee was given to political members. Then it was APC members that was picked as beneficiaries. You see what I was saying? If it happens now, they would say PDP members. So this is where we are. This one says, Mr. Antoine, the guest, no matter how we stretch the definition of the poor, I know I'm not captured amongst the poor, and I also know that millions more Nigerians deserve the 8K, but my transportation fare to and fro daily my office following last week's petrol increase in price is now 500 naira daily, 2K weekly, 8,000 naira a month. I use less than 3,000 monthly on electric bills. Before any increase, I doubt it would top to 5,000 monthly if the increase happens. If I get that 8K,
it also have a plan for the people before they remove this subsidy, not after removing the subsidy before start. That is a Buhari regime. That when he came into power, he's just a closed border, say the people should go into agriculture and this and that. Meanwhile, there was not enough rice producing in the country that would serve the people. He just closed the border, and that affects people very, very well. And there was a problem. So I feel that this new government is supposed to learn so many things from the past administration. And as they were coming in, they're supposed to come with a new policy and new plans to take this country forward, not to behave the way the last administration did.
All right.
It's wrong.
Thank you, Nigerian. For good morning.
Andrew, good morning.
Morning, no.
Andrew, it's quick, Andrew.
Go ahead.
Andrew, this government and cash transfer we are discussing this morning. Andrew, you will not do the same thing to get different results. If you do the same thing, you get the same result on daily basis. You see, I wonder our government, what they are doing to us. Every day, we publish the poor Nigeria, publish us. The rich get richer. Andrew, this 8,000 transfer, not to transfer. Who are we with poor man? And I am a Popo man. You go to my family house at the Popo town. You have those names that can do those people. They know how photograph that is. You go to Momadan below. You go to Aerokoto. You go to Minima. All those villages. How will you get people to make sure they get this list? They give this 8,000. Andrew, our president has ruled Lagos State successfully. Lagos State is Nigeria. Nigeria is a very big state. The policies one put in a government matters a lot. What is the policy is putting for government? It's just get on board and remove subsidy. Do this one. Now school fees increasing. Everything at the same time. Andrew, they can't do everything. A child want to walk. A child will put one leg, take one leg. But the government want to do everything at the same time. So publish me and you. Let them get richer. Andrew, it is so good for me. Let this community be not put this 8,000 transfer. I don't like it. Let them revive our agriculture, revive our refinery. Put this money on the patriotism that will give employment to our river youth. How do we have you young boys and get about which university and they have no work for them for many years? What
right.
About let us solve their problem.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to another caller now. Nigerian for good morning.
Hello. Yeah, Andrew, good morning.
Yeah, morning.
I think for me, my name is Daniel, by the way, calling from Transformation. For me, government of Nigeria consistently do something for a simple reason. The simple reason is because they knew that they can get to power without you and I. They can just be a president. It doesn't matter who votes or who doesn't vote. Because when the people consensus begin to count, when we get it right, when they knew that if I didn't do well, people will take me out of power, you won't see this thing continue. How can a reasonable government will remove subsidy, begin to plan? You should have the plan on the ground, the way that the thing will not affect people. Before you say you are removing subsidy. Now, every parent, every Nigerian, I don't even know who is a middle class anymore. Because there's no middle class anywhere. Everybody has turned to poor people. Poor people. The only people we have people in the class, which is the government of the Nigeria, who control the executive, the judiciary, and all of them. Who is there that are the rich? The ordinary people are poor people. In fact, we have poor people are more in poverty in Nigeria as a result of government policies. And they do these policies because they knew that take it or leave it, they will be in the power. They don't need you to be there because of institution. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nigeria Info, good morning.
Good morning, my brother, Andrew.
Welcome.
I'm greeting to your guest in the studio.
Thank you.
Robert Magari Farmer.
All right, go ahead.
See, the government of the day, for me, I'm not surprised. For those who are very close to me and around me, I kept telling them that this government was taking by every
Hello.
Political equation in Nigeria where people from different parties push for the government of the day to come into power. But I know that every of those forces and those who play a role to make the government come in place will all collect their pound of flesh. How do you tell me that your target is to give palliative to 12 million out of 220 something million of Nigerians, according to them? Like we have been discussing this issue, and your guest there in the studio is highlighting it because he has been there. Those who do not believe us, because we are not experts, the guest in the studio is hitting it hard the way we have been saying. How do you come about it? The government of the day, when he came on board, Senator Ahmed Tinubu, the president, he said he was going to govern Nigeria with rule of law. Is that what's going on? Let me tell us, by them calling any Nigerian poorest of the poor, that negates the Constitution. Chapter 4 of Nigerian Constitution, Section 34, Sub 1A, it says, every individual is entitled to respect for dignity of his person, and accordingly, A, no person shall be subject to torture or to inhuman or degrading treatment. So when you call a Nigerian poorest of the poor, are you not degrading those people? Andrew, let me leave.
All right, thank you very much. We'll take two more calls, and then we take some messages before we come back to the studio to wrap things up. Good morning, Nigeria Info.
Good morning. It's Victor. I still call back.
Okay.
I want to ask a question.
Go on.
Is government having any plan to fix our refineries? Just want to know.
All right. Yes, the government had said that it's been worked on, and they said the third quarter, as what we're in now, we will know about the situation of the refineries. Nigeria Info, good morning.
Good morning, this morning, the film.
Go on.
My name is Good News. Number one, I think that Mr. President has come to rule Nigeria with the mentality he saw in Lagos 1998 when he took over government 1999. That is what I think, based on what I'm seeing in these 7 weeks, close to 7 weeks he's in charge. I think that the persons who he has brought, like the chief of staff, has not brought in modern ways into him. If not, how will somebody come and say you want to give palliative of 8,000 naira to Nigerians? Knowing fully well that the last dispensation tried it and it failed. Yes, the president released the money, but persons around him killed it. The food something for schools, the former president did. I was shocked that in River State, a lady was in charge under the governor of River State, and so many local governments could not benefit. And one from Anthony called in the studio here and was complaining how they have tried to make sure that they sabotage the program. The River State, yes, the money for River State school feeding was released. I was shocked when Dayo made that calls. Now, the president is going on with similar thing. Why not use that 500 billion? Get buses, run the whole nation, at least 20 to go around the whole states, then employ drivers. They should take a little money from drivers, from passengers.
Thank you very much. We get your point already. Kingsley Omachi says, good morning. 8K palliative fund is not good at all. The federal government should use the money and refurbish refineries. KJ says, I think that government should be impartial in distribution of palliatives. How do you do that? Instead of disbursing the money, fix the refineries so everybody, open the seaports and everybody benefits. Edwin says this will end up like the bailout funds given to governors during the past administration, which they squandered and nothing happened, as Nigerians must rise up against these governors. That's the next question, because people are worried about these infrastructural funds that would be given to governors. Because in the past we've seen funds go to governors, and we expected that the people would see this begin to trickle down. At the end of the day, we don't see. We have about less than 3 minutes to go. In Rivers State at the moment, you mentioned what is seen as development for some might not be. The Ring Road project is one that has brought a lot of conversations. Many say, well, the government might see it as development, but most Rivers people are also looking and saying, this is not what we think we want now, especially with the situation of the economy at the moment. Do you see a situation where this infrastructural funds would go into the purposes for which it was given, or some governors might even decide to use them to meet other pressing needs that they have, like maybe even pay off debts?
Well, let me start by saying that the Ring Road project is a very sound thinking from a sound mind. If you look at Sim Fubara, I have taken time to speak with him. Sim Fubara is a man whose head is sound. It takes a sound mind to introduce a sound policy and to get a sound project. Now he went to borrow. Now we are hearing that they've paid almost 80% or so on the project. The same Julius Berger, and we trust that they will do the work. So when that project has been a project running the minds of several governors in the past. When I contested governorship election as a candidate, that was one major one I had in mind to do. So when he came in to introduce it in the very first 2 months of his administration, I said it's good. Well, talking about this infrastructure fund, if you do not have a proper plan and a proper audit trail and a proper monitoring system, this money will not achieve its aim.
The social register is not working, which would have been one way. It's not. It has been put aside. I don't want to make reference to social register integrity reasons.
Yes, they are saying integrity. I have never seen that existing in Rivers State. I made private investigation on that. I didn't say it, so I cannot take a proper analysis on a scheme I never even saw. But I'm talking about, you see, the way we operated, we gave 10,000 naira per person when civil servants were earning 19,000 something. How would you want to give 8,000 naira to people when civil servants are even crying for the 30,000? It's unfair. In fact, let me also inform you, we had 10,000 naira for people. We had 50,000 naira paid to some persons who are supervisors. We have 70,000 naira paid to some persons too, which means in that our scheme, people were earning more than the civil servants. And this thing was making impact on people. So talking about politicians getting involved, politicians are Rivers people, yes, but we try to introduce system. If politicians are benefiting from that, I don't know Rivers people. Right, but the system is that they should not be people who are working or who are PAs and all that to hijack.
All right, we have to wrap things up. Thank you very much. We'll go for a commercial now.
So Guy, we need to read all of this in the next